Firstly, welcome back to Property Talks. Currently in Dubai with my good friend Bally, known for about 10, 15 years, shared a similar property journey. Where do we start with Dubai, right? So there's a lot of hype around property in Dubai, and I was looking remotely at properties to buy in Dubai earlier in the year, and what I realized was it's too hard to do something behind the screen. It's better if I'm there, especially if you want to do that research that gives you that comfort to invest. So earlier in the year, I flew out to Dubai. Everyone thinks I was on a jolly, but in reality, it was just back-to-back viewings all day, getting back to the hotel at 12:01 at night, ordering Uber Eats, and then same thing the following day. But the value that I gained from doing that was immense and something that you can't really do behind a screen. Here's a quick example, right? So back in the day, if you're looking at home, from home, you'd look for Burj Khalifa skyline view, XYZ, whatever it could be. Whereas when you go there and you see the actual listing or you see the property, that skyline view could be something tiny which is covered with so much stuff around it, whereas a park view which you would have undermined behind the screen looks absolutely fantastic. So it was very difficult to trust agents and brokers here, because even the listings that they put up on their equivalent of Rightmove was so misleading and something that was outdated from 6 months ago, and it's like photos that don't represent the flat, etc., etc. So yeah, me being here helped me make a more informed decision.
How much time did you spend behind the scene looking before you realized I've got to get out there to make this real?
Probably it was in the back of my head for about a month, and that was for a few months, several months, but then for 1 month, I think that's when we were actively looking to find and source properties. And even brokers probably weren't taking me seriously because I'm not there. Although they'll start sending you everything. So unless you know what you want and you can be specific about your requirements, I was getting listings and things that are not relevant to me, but agents having their narrative. And I don't know if you've seen Dubai Hustle on BBC iPlow, but they're all on commission, and therefore they're pushing what's in front of them or something that they've got on the market. I'm knowledgeable enough to push back on what I want, but what I can't do is provide expertise on the area or knowledge on the area. So I'm taking agents' word for it when they might have their own agenda, and that was a challenge.
Okay. And obviously, look, flying out here is not cheap.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to get here. It takes a lot of time to spend out here.
Yeah.
What suggestions would you give to guys in the UK or outside of Dubai?
Yeah.
From a research perspective.
Yeah.
To bring them up to speed before they put that commitment into coming out?
Okay, so firstly, I would say talk to someone who's invested, because that would help. And that's why those 4 or 5 days I spent out here, I had an agenda and I knew certain areas, but I eliminated, after seeing a few other areas that I was considering, I eliminated them after I went there, and I'll tell you my reasons why. But talk to someone who's done something like that, because that might put you in a better place to invest and give you a bit more knowledge that you may not have. And it's not a case of saying, tell me what you think I should do. It's tell me why you made that choice, so you understand the pros and cons, as opposed to me sharing my view or someone else's view just because they've done it. It might not be the right answer for you. As an example, people kept saying to me, focus on Imar communities, and I didn't really understand what they meant by what's an Imar community. But when I came here and I saw that actually, wow, all the roads are done, or the payments there, or the road signs there, or like Imar communities, they build up well, as opposed to maybe just having a plot in an area and then other areas around it are not done up as well. And I only appreciated that once I came. So there are a few other developers, Soba, Ellington, that I've come across who are brilliant, and I've got a few contacts there. And there's this high end. I just went for Imar because it's a safe bet. And I wouldn't say Imar's finish is as good as Ellington and Soba, but they build on that community aspect, right? So yeah, talk to people who have done their research and made that decision to invest, because that will put you in a better place. And I'll be honest, you have to take everything an agent says with a pinch of salt. And when I came and I had my viewings, I held agents accountable because they think they're talking to someone who's not into property. Some of these people have just got into property because they've flown out for the Dubai lifestyle and become brokers, when in reality they don't have that property knowledge. I wouldn't say invest if you don't understand property, because you'll get taken for a mug unless you're happy to just rely on someone else's knowledge and experience and take their word for it.
So would you say that actually building your knowledge in the UK first through networks or podcasts like this or other sources online,
great shout,
is a good way for people to prioritize their agenda when they come out here, so they know what they're looking for, and also I guess, give them that credibility, even if they don't invest in property in the UK or elsewhere.
Yeah, 100%. There's so much knowledge out there. There's so many people who have come out here. The only thing I would say is be skeptical about those who are agents, because everyone has their own agenda. So use research where someone's not selling you something because they don't have that agenda when they're talking to you and giving that opinion. But that definitely, and I did that to an extent. But because I also knew I wanted to focus on certain areas, so I looked at Dubai Creek Harbour as opposed to the likes of Marina, Downtown, Business Bay, etc. Because I was thinking my objective was that potential capital appreciation. So for those of you who don't know, Creek Tower might be built in, or hopefully will be built in, Dubai Creek Harbour, and that's likely to be bigger than Burj Khalifa. So there's a tourist attraction spot there, and it's early in development in that area. There's no train station, etc., etc. So when those things come, it will hopefully have an increase in the value of the property, which other areas like Marina, Business Bay, Downtown, etc., you could argue they are closer to maturity, but they are well established. So it goes back to your objective, but then knowing the area. So if someone else wanted high cash flow, apparently JVC has the highest ROI across Dubai. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told. But when I went there, I didn't feel like that was an area where I wanted to invest. And especially if this is a first step you're taking, then I'd rather compromise on the 1-2% return and have a safer, smoother journey to encourage me to invest in the future, as opposed to focus on that extra percent, because that extra percent, the value I'm going to get from that is not anywhere near the satisfaction of having a smoother process and being encouraged to invest again.
So why Dubai though? Or would you recommend any other areas in the Middle East? Did you explore any other areas around the UAE?
I spoke to a few people who have already invested in Dubai, and when I came, it was always on the agenda. We'd come to Dubai quite often and therefore a bit more familiar with the market. I'm sure there are other places to invest. Apparently, Ras Al Khaimah has a huge potential going forward, and the amount of investment that's happening in Saudi is ridiculous, crazy. So I think Saudi will probably become the future, or instead of Dubai, people start coming to Saudi. So that's an early place to look into in terms of the life cycle. Although Dubai was more of a pull factor, but who knows what the market's going to say, because during COVID the market crashed, and then it's been so volatile and it's gone through a boom, and whether this bubble will burst, I'm not sure. People say that it could happen, and I guess back in the day, you come to Dubai and you see a lot of buildings that haven't been completed. However, I think that was a time where there was excess supply and not enough demand. Whereas now, given global issues that are happening around the world, a lot of people are taking their money from elsewhere and bringing it into Dubai and investing. So when I was looking at off plans, I was being told that people from other countries in Europe were bringing their entire cash and buying floors, let alone 1 beds, 2 beds, they're buying floors. So there's a lot more demand that's spiking up the price, and who knows how long this bubble will last. But I chose Dubai for pull factors and speaking to people who've done it, and therefore it was a bit more familiar.
So there's a lot of information there about kind of your journey into finding the right property or right properties and doing those viewings. Summarize for the viewers, right? Your top 3 lessons learned on your journey to get to the point of this is what I want to focus on.
Talk to people, yeah. Talk to as many people as you can whoever have gone through some form of journey. And it doesn't have to be someone who's done the same thing as you, because you might still pick up something from them. Second is to understand your objectives, because if it's about cash flow, it's about something, if it's for long-term rental or whatever it is, find something. There'll be other certain areas that are probably more suitable. As an example, right, Dubai Creek Harbour, I wouldn't say has the demand right now in terms of short-term rental as the likes of Downtown or JBR or Marina, etc., because tourists will want to come there, whereas Dubai Creek Harbour, people might stay there for a few weeks or a month, or might be working out here, and it's a long-term game. So that's number 2. And number 3 is, do you know what, you learn so much more when you're out here as opposed to doing research behind. So I'm not saying don't do your research behind the screen, but the amount I gained from 4 or 5 days of being here was immense compared to, and it changed my opinion on what I was previously considering and what I would do now and what I will do going forward. So something else we could touch upon is off-plan properties. A lot of people spoke about off-plan, but I didn't really understand it. And now, after speaking to people and even brokers, and it's good to have knowledge that you can challenge brokers back. So I remember one conversation I had with a broker. It's at 11, 12 at night. We're interviewing and we're going back and forth, debating between a few properties, which was good because someone was challenging me back about my thought process, I was taking everything they say at face value. So I'd say, yeah, that's the 3 points, which I've just forgot. So if you ask me what they were to summarize, I probably can't do it.
I think to summarize, shows if I was listening.
So
To summarize,
talk to people,
know your objectives,
and come out here
and challenge.
and see it yourself. I think that was the 3 things that helped me make a more informed decision. The other thing to touch upon is off-plan property, which you and I have discussed quite a bit.
That sounds like a logical approach to do it, right? Look, talk to people, figure out what's going on, get your objectives, because that will help you build a foundation of knowledge. And then once you know your objectives, come out, have a look,
100%.
in line with your objectives.
Sure, that's a good point, because the market moves so fast in Dubai that you have to act ASAP. You can't leave it too late, because so the property that we ended up going for, I found when I came back, but I was more informed and I was knowledgeable about the process, and the process here is a lot more smoother than it is in the UK. It takes up to 1 month, and that's why you have to act fast.
Okay. So I was going to ask, so let's talk about the UK and the comparisons to Dubai. So
cool.
We've obviously both.
But what about off-plan properties?
Yeah, we'll talk about off-plan. Are you going to edit this through?
I'm not going to edit it. Let's continue. Let's continue. It's all good.
Well, let's talk about off-plan properties
Go
then.
for it.
So, look, for those that don't know, what's an off-plan property?
So an off-plan property, right, is where there's a development that a developer has said they're going to build in the future, and right now it's not built, and therefore you're investing 3, 4, 5 years in advance with a set amount to benefit from capital appreciation. So when it gets closer, so let's use an example. It's 2024. Let's say there's a new developer who's going to release a launch 2028. You could put 10% down now. Every 6 months or period, you put down another 10% or whatever it could be, depending on the payment plan, so that when it's ready for handover, you've already paid the majority of it. During COVID, they were doing post-handover payment plans. Now, I don't think that's the case, but that allows you to invest and sign on to a property without that initial outlay, although there is an obligation to make sure you can stick to those payments. Otherwise, you could be in a shitty situation.
And how do people get comfortable that what they see off plan is going to be delivered?
That's another reason why I would back a developer who has credibility like Imar, Ellington, etc., because they'll stick to their word and they will fulfill those plans. And there's a lot of money that people make through off-plan properties, because what many people do is you secure an off-plan property, something that's just been released by Imar, quickly put that 10% deposit down or whatever it could be, and every 6 months or every periodic phase, you keep investing a bit more, and closer to the time, the price has risen, right? So let's say at the start there's 100 units, they've only released 10 at the start for 1 million dirhams. I'm making this up. In 6 months' time, they might release another 10, 12 properties at 1.2 million dirhams. So they've just increased the price of your property, and you could argue you've benefited from capital appreciation because it's now next available at 200,000 dirhams more. So let's say if I wanted to sell it at that point, I could then undercut the developer and say, oh, I need to sell it, and sell it at 150,000 dirhams more than what I've paid. So I've only put 10% down, and I've sold it because it might have just lifted the price. Obviously, there's negotiation and all that stuff involved, but there's a commercial model, there's a business model of off-plan properties where I know people have made good money without investing 100% or whatever it could be, because they've sold it before handover, where the price of the property is 30-40% more than what you paid at the start, because you had that trust in the process. So many people, they don't even hold it until handover. They've sold it before because someone else will come in and they're keen on that area and say, actually, do you know what? I want to buy it and I want something that's readily available. You're selling it 3 months before handover. So you paid 1 million, it's now worth 1.6, 1.7, and new builds in that area are coming up at 1.8, 1.9. So you could sell it for 1.6 and you may have only put 50, 60% down, whatever those numbers could be. So there's definitely a business model this is common, right? Because it's easy to sell in the secondary market. And let's say if I can't keep up with payments, then if I reduce that price a bit more, then I'm sure someone would say, oh, Amish is a distressed seller, I want to buy that off him. And then I've sold my property, someone else has got a good deal because the next launch is at a higher price. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you're effectively making money before the handovers happened.
Yeah, correct. And because you've invested that up front, in advance, so I think that's definitely another attractive option of investing. And your earlier question was about comparing to the UK. You don't see this in the UK. Like, I can't see you. I'm not saying it can't happen. I don't know, but I also don't there's as much money to be made on off-plan properties, if there is money to be made, because in the UK they're launching it at such a premium price in itself, where you're not going to make money. If anything, you're going to lose money after 2 years of having it.
And what's the flip side then of that, Amish? So not off plan, but already built properties.
Okay, you're not seeing anything for a few years' time, so you have no cash flow coming in, compared to a ready-made property where you're going to get some form of income. But the benefit is you've got capital appreciation, and I think from what I know, there's more money to be made in off plan based on the little research I've done. Yeah. So your return on investment is higher, and I would say, from experience now, there's a bit more stress involved, right? Where you have got a tenant in. So the way it works in Dubai is you've got short-term let or long-term let. If it's long-term let, it's like a 12-month contract or whatever it could be, but it's a 12-month notice period. You don't have the same concerns as you do in the UK, because people won't like default on their debts, and you can get payment up front, etc., etc. So you've got more protection. However, that 12-month notice period means you can't sell it ASAP, or you have to sell it with a tenant, which some people may not want to do. Whereas short-term rental, which is a hugely lucrative market in Dubai, that's where you rent out for 2-3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is.
So Airbnb.
Airbnb, exactly. There's a higher agent fee. So if I give you a few comparisons, you're looking at about 18 to 20% on short-term let, whereas you're looking at 5% on long-term let. And if you're doing the short-term let, then I would say that's probably a bit more stressful. And despite me, in theory, being hands-off, I would say, because I'm more emotionally invested to this property, because if I come to Dubai, I'll probably stay here, etc., etc. Then, and we spoke about this, we may not live in our property in the UK that you bought for investment, but you may do that here. And therefore, when I come to the flat, I'm looking around, make sure everything's in good condition, etc., etc. Or if something's not been done, then I'll flag it with an agent. So that adds a bit more stress to that process, which you won't get on off plan, because there's no tenant involved and you're not buying that finished product. Also, with short-term let, you've got to furnish the property, which is another conversation in itself.
Do you find that the returns are better from there though? So you might pay a higher fee, but you're getting more income.
Great question. And I'd say, you know what? At the start, people say short-term rental makes more money. I don't think it does. When I did the numbers, remember, you have to furnish the property, which costs a lot more, which you don't have to do with a long-term rental. And you're going by assumptions of forecasts of peak seasons, off-peak seasons, etc. So people say, and for you to hit those forecasts, etc., you need to make sure you've got reviews, which you're not going to have at the start when you just list your property. So you may start making more returns after you have reviews and after it's become a more desirable property and it's higher listed on Airbnb's platform, etc. But I actually think, after doing the numbers, I would have made more money doing long-term rental, but I chose not to do that for other reasons. How's that?
It's good stuff.
Cool. Next.
So well, let's summarize a bit of that then, Amish, for the viewers. I
Go on,
like a top
hit me.
three. So we did the top three for getting to the point where you potentially find the property.
Yep.
So now let's do, what's your lessons learned or your top three advice for people once they've kind of got the property? So you touched on a few topics before. So I guess the off-plan, on-plan is a little bit in the middle of what we discussed initially.
Yep.
Then you've got things about maybe the type of rent or the tenancy you go for.
Yep, fine. Okay, cool.
A few other bits and bobs. So let's give us some top three stuff there.
So do you want to use the property for stays if you come here? Yes or no? If it's yes, then you do short-term rental because you have the option to stay there during points in the year. Or if not, then you do long-term rental. That's one. How much do you care about the return you're going to make in the short term? Because if you just want a piece of hands-off investment, long-term rental is the way, because you don't have to worry about furnishing it, etc. And if you do get it furnished, then people charge fees for that. Plus, if there's damage to a property, or one of your furniture items get damaged, impacted, whatever, it's going to hurt you, and then it's more stress to solve that situation. So if you're going to do it, the one benefit I would say is, if you use an agent to furnish the property and then do a short-term rental with them, at least they've bought the stuff, and therefore if something goes wrong, they will have access to receipts, or they know what to change it with, etc., etc. Whereas if you use a different company, I don't know how that works, but I can't assume it's as straightforward, because you'd have to be a bit more involved to say, oh, here's the receipt, or I got it from XYZ, and they'll have to replace it. So yeah, do you want to stay there? Yes or no? Do you want to be hands off? Yes or no? And how much do you care about the income you're going to receive from it? Because if you can be patient, I'm sure, and it's about the area as well, because if you've got something in prime downtown, you're more likely to have a premium rate on short-term rentals, which you may not get in other areas. Yeah, I was a bit wishy-washy, bro.
No, that's all right, man. We can summarise this in the editing.
Cool. I'm not doing no editing.
Flash top 3 on screen.
Definitely not doing that.
Look, we both invested in property in the UK for the last nearly 10 years or so.
Yeah, congratulations about.
Thank you. And look, we've gone through loads of experiences, and I can't say that word.
I'm not editing that either.
Diversifying into Dubai. So we've got benefits of Dubai, right? So it sounds like the off-plan stuff is a lot more credible here than it is in the UK because you're paying premiums. There might be a supply-demand issue and so on and so forth. But over your last 10 years in the UK, you've obviously gone through a journey.
We've gone through a journey.
We've gone through a journey. Very similar journey, yet very different.
Yep.
I guess the question is, right, what have you learned from the UK experiences that you've been able to apply in your Dubai journey, although it's a lot shorter in comparison?
So what I've learned is, one, how the property market works in terms of just basic financials, numbers, process, etc. Because it allows me to ask the right questions. And I'd probably say that's the most important part. By you being more informed, you're able to ask the right questions as opposed to blindly taking information that's been given. So for example, I was able to work out what my numbers would look like, etc., because I've gone through the UK journey. And I can compare things that go wrong there. Could that go wrong here? So in that sense, it's 100% helped. And it's also made me, the reason why I also wanted to invest in Dubai is because the UK market has become pretty embarrassing, if I'm honest with you. Although there are a few opportunities coming up. But just as a investor in the UK with tax and lack of protection for landlords and this, I'm sure this was there for the last 20, 30 years, but now it feels like more people are more educated on property, and therefore for you to find a good deal is getting snapped up straight away. Whereas before there were more things flying around, whereas now everyone's pretty much waiting because there's such a shit time in the market that if there's an opportunity, you got ready-made investors who are going to snap it.
Okay, so you talked about like the regulations, the tax.
By the way, Bob, this is recording, yeah?
I hope so.
Go on.
If not, it was 24 minutes and 21 seconds of my life. I'm not getting back. You talked about those other factors. So in Dubai, what do people need to consider that are surrounding that initial investment? So how they structure something, or how they get taxed. Where does their income go? Do they use separate bank accounts?
Great point. So everyone says, oh, it's tax-free, tax-free. By the way, speak to someone. Don't just take my word for it. But unless you set up in Dubai or you're a resident in Dubai, I think you still have to pay income on that. So if you are looking to invest in Dubai, set up, buy it through a company, make a company here, and therefore it's the entity based in Dubai who owns that property, as opposed to you buying it in the UK or from the UK, and therefore that's going to be income you've earned abroad, etc., etc. They've got a lot of schemes out here to encourage investment. So you've got a 2-year property visa, you've got a golden visa where they just changed some regulation around that. So previously, I think it was you had to put 1 mil down out of a 2 mil investment, cash outlay you've done. Whereas now it's not the case. I think that's reduced or come down materially, which is great.
And that's dirhams, not pounds.
Correct, that's dirhams. So 1 mil, you're looking at, let's say, £200,000. That's what it was. So you would have had to spend 2 mil. I've probably got my numbers wrong. It's 2 mil, and out of that 2 mil, so it could be across 2-3 properties, but you would have had to put 1 mil dirhams cash down, and that's for a golden visa or a 10-year visa. Alternatively, if you put 750k down on a property, you get a 2-year property visa. Yeah, and then you can sponsor people through it, etc., etc. Stop asking me hard questions.
I had 26 minutes, so sounds like we actually structured this. So look, we talked about the Dubai journey. We talked about how you got to what you learned about, learning about property in Dubai, going out there, objectives, all that sort of stuff.
Let me flip it on you, because you've now seen some of the things in Dubai. Are there things that come to mind, or what's your thoughts on the Dubai market from what you've seen? No, I'm just going to have to sit here looking like a mug while you're talking back.
No, that's right. So look, it's still minimal. I think it's my second time in Dubai. First time was about eight years or so ago.
Yeah.
And this time around, and you can see the amount of development that happens within an 8-year period. I guess there's a question of, look, how sustainable is that growth?
Yeah.
But
then when you compare that to investing in the UK,
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, right now you can see a beautiful skyline, but you can see a beautiful skyline with cranes everywhere as well. So that construction is going on. So I think you've probably done all the hard work, and I can sponge off some of that one.
It's fine.
I think what's made it more appealing is the quality of some of those finishes. You know, I think we saw it when we went to the apartment earlier on in the holiday around. How good the security was, how good the community was.
Point.
How good the how clean it was. I mean, Dubai is known for being clean, but you can see.
Yeah.
When you're paying a service charge in the UK, I have absolute no visibility or transparency of what that looks like.
And you probably don't feel like that service charge is being spent appropriately, whereas here you think, actually, fine, I'm paying service charge, but you can see the impact of how it's being maintained.
Yeah, I feel the off-plan stuff sounds a lot more appealing.
Good man.
In the UK, one of the toughest things about owning property, personally, I feel, is the tenancy and the management. So it's all good and well, but there's a lot out of your control from a regulation perspective. So the off-plan stuff sounds, like a route to go. I mean, my sole purpose would be from an investment perspective anyway. Possibly a longer-term gain, but the flexibility of off-plan allows you to get out of the market if you.
And remember, the disadvantage of that is not getting cash come in, but your potential upside is high.
I think this is where you come back to your objectives, right? So what's your goal? The property journey for me and the strategy I've applied in the UK was a long-term game. So I would apply the same concepts in Dubai. I think what I've seen over the last 3-4 days...
I think the market is not the same for you to apply the same concepts that we've learned in the UK, which is why I'm doing something in Dubai that I haven't done in the UK, and I'm actually considering off-plan, which I looked at in the UK, didn't materialize. Stupid developer, and he screwed me over. But so I think it's not. I've not bought that same experience or same objective from the UK, because the Dubai market is. Why am I doing the hand action? The Dubai market is so different and set up differently. For example, the tenancy in the UK, where we have landlords have no protection. Whereas here, I feel like you do have significant. The disadvantage is you got a 12-month notice period, but your tenant's not going to default. They will, because there's consequences in place for those who do.
Yeah, I mean, it's opened my eyes up to Dubai as a culture, a city. I mean, it's known for its tourism, what the options are. I mean, for them to build towers bigger than, they're beating their own records in certain things, right? You could use a concept of how London grew, and then now it's becoming saturated and almost unaffordable. But
because someone said to me, who lives in Dubai, they don't think Dubai has gone through the same maturity or growth that London or Dubai hasn't seen that yet, and that's still to come. Who knows if it will, and maybe there might be a crash or a bubble burst, etc. But they're still behind the curve of where a London property prices are. So imagine having a flat that is straight in front of the Shard, London Eye, whatever you want, like that. You're paying a ridiculous amount for that. Whereas here, we're probably underestimating the price that is, because it's still early in that journey compared to the UK.
And if you think about us, right, so we always sit back and we think, if we were born at the wrong time. So if we were born 10 years earlier, I wish I bought in London.
Great point.
It's easy to say in hindsight once you've seen the growth in something, because back then if you bought a property in London for, again, I'll make up numbers for ease of math, but £100,000, that's a lot of money at that point in time. But that might be worth £1 million now.
Spot on.
And we're sitting there and thinking, oh my god, these guys are overnight millionaires.
Question: Do you think every time we've said that, or we've born at the wrong time, are we lucky to have the potential opportunity to buy now in Dubai?
That's where I was going to, right? So you now presented with a potential opportunity. Nobody knew back then it was going to potentially explode or people become overnight millionaires, in inverted commas. You're now in a position where Dubai potentially could be that next London, right? Or that next big place where property might boom. So, and
every time in the UK we've said, prices can't go higher, and research has been done which shows they still keep going. And you could argue that's the same in Dubai, because people are saying it's so high right now that it's going to burst, and that could happen. But eventually, is Dubai still going to have a spot on the map which people are going to keep coming to and investing to? I can see that still being the case. So that makes me think that actually, wait, are we now in a position to invest in Dubai and benefit from the things that we weren't at the right time for in London or other countries?
And that's a risk, right? So now it's put your money where your mouth is. So
shit.
If you return back time, there's nothing to say you would invest, because you don't know what you know right now. So right now you could apply the same principles of what you've seen in other areas. I mean, even in the last 3, 4, 5 years, a short time, people that are younger than me but same generation, so 4 or 5 years, they would say, well, you're lucky that you got to buy before the additional stamp
Correct.
duty or before the rates go up. And
Correct.
so there's always going to be that journey,
Imagine
so-
people now who, at least we were in an era where the rates were 1.5 or whatever it could be, whereas now people who are trying to invest, I'm still getting a few messages where people are considering investing, and I'm thinking, shit, I feel so sorry for them because the prices are high, the rate they're paying is high, and availability is low. So, yeah, man, what goes to the point that we said earlier, timing is everything.
I think what's Dubai shown me over the last 3-4 days, or I don't know how long we've been here now, a week,
6 months.
6 months, is there is opportunity here. And I guess what I've been able to see, I think we might have missed that area in the UK. So
it's a good
I have
point.
a bit more desire if I went home to start doing some more of that research. I think
Yeah.
coming out of here, when you mention areas like the Marina or Dubai Creek or
business
yeah,
areas,
I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
And now I get a bit more of an idea.
Yeah,
So that helps.
that's why coming here is so much more valuable than behind the screen, because you can't appreciate that. And it's something that I was doing last time when I came, is comparing areas in the UK to areas in Dubai, because you might be more knowledgeable and you can compare that. Oh, this is more like Mayfair, whereas that's more like Hounslow. Bad use of Hounslow. Any other questions, bro?
No, let's wrap up. I think so. We've covered.
I'm not doing another summary, but hope that's been useful to share an insight into the journey towards investing in Dubai. If you have any questions, shout me. If you have any questions, shout Balp. If he's got anything that's been insightful. Balp, anything else on your end?
No, that's it, man. I think. Yeah, good chat, man.
Peace. Thank you. Amish, you Property Talks.
I don't think I was recording, bro. Can you imagine?